Welcome to Burnout-Free Me, your success and well-being podcast. I'm Dr. Amy Grimm, and I am so glad you're here. Let's go from burnout to breakthrough together. Hello, friends. Welcome to episode number 70 of the Daring DVM podcast. Before we jump in, I would like to tell you that Mr. Burkles, my old, endearing pain-in-the-ass pug, is hanging out with me while recording today. He has decided that he does not want to be outside of the room and keep scratching at the door, and he has decided that he does not want to be quiet while he's in the room either. So if you hear occasional snorting and grumbling and mild hacking from his little collapsing trachea, I apologize. I'm not quite sure how to edit it out, so I'm just going to keep talking over him. Now, this is a continuation of last week's episode, so if you're just joining us today, welcome, welcome. I'm so happy you're here, and you may want to check out episode 69 first, before you continue to listen to this one. If you don't, that's fine too. We're just going to jump right in where we left off, and you can pick it up as you go. So last week we talked about the actual definition of burnout, and we talked about this occupational definition versus what we typically describe as nervous system burnout and collapse, and also what we tend to talk about in relation to social media and how we talk about burnout to each other. We also covered the state of freeze, as in fight, flight, or freeze, which we defined as a temporary survival adaptation, and we talked about how the state of freeze is not the same as the state of shutdown, although often on social media you will see the word freeze being used incorrectly to describe the state of shutdown. Shutdown is actually that completely collapsed and immobilized state, whereas freeze is a temporary state. And shutdown is very different than freeze because it is not charged. The temporary state of freeze is quite highly activated. It's that shock, that deer in the headlights kind of frozen. Whereas shutdown is the state in which we see depression and complete lack of energy. And then we talked about functional freeze, which is different from either shutdown or temporary freeze, because functional freeze is a chronic, persistent state of survival that feels devoid of meaning and pleasure, and it's like you're just going through the motions. It is somewhere in between that hyperactivation and that complete hypoactivation, because it's like you're pushing your foot down on the accelerator and slamming on the brakes at the same time. So you're pretty uncomfortable, yet you're still kind of functioning, but not in any real effective, efficacious, or meaningful way. We also covered why it's so important to understand the difference in these definitions, because it is going to impact how you heal and get yourself out of functional freeze. And we ended the episode with me giving you a brief summary of what the road to recovery looks like. And today, I'm going to go into that in more detail. I also encouraged you to check out a free worksheet that I made to help you discern if you are experiencing functional freeze. And if you would like to have this free resource, just email me. My email is vetcoach, V-E-T, vetcoach @daringdvm.com, and I will send it right to your inbox. Okay, so if you find yourself identifying with being in the state of functional freeze, you're probably wondering, how do I get out of here? You're tired of going through the motions. You're tired of feeling exhausted and unmotivated. You're tired of doing things because you think you have to. You want to feel happy. You want to bring back the meaning and joy that you once felt and you once had in your life. You want that purpose back. You want to live a life of fulfillment, intention, and joy. Yet, you just feel stuck. You're in this pattern of going through the motions, and you can't quite figure out how to get out of it. So, what should you do? Your first step is learning to identify your 3 main nervous system states and becoming really familiar with each of those landscapes. You want to know how you feel, act, and show up when you are low on energy, so that you can decide which tools to use to help you bring more energy and motivation and happiness back into your life. You want to know what your hyperactivated survival state looks like and how you feel, act, and show up there, because these are often the results of what triggered you into functional freeze in the first place. And you want to have a clear idea of what it looks like for you to feel safe and regulated, because otherwise you won't know what you are trying to create or how to even get to your resilient state. And if you would like to revisit this, then you can check out some earlier episodes in which I discuss these 3 different states. Or you can come coach with me and I will help you personally in figuring this out. Now, what we are talking about today is the journey from getting out of functional freeze and back into resilience. So, as you recall, functional freeze is a mixed state. It is a mix of that hyperactivation and that hypoactivation. Your foot is on the accelerator and the brake at the same time. So when you are trying to heal and come out of the state of functional freeze, there are going to be 2 main things that you will need to deal with. The first is that you're coming out of this hypoactivated low energy state where you're frozen and you feel stuck. And you can think about this like ice melting. You need to thaw out. And friend, it is a slow thaw. You cannot place yourself on defrost in the microwave. That is not how this works. And the thing about this functional freeze state is, even though it is uncomfortable, it still creates this unconscious level and feeling of safety within your body. And that's because your nervous system and your survival brain are like, okay, cool, we know how to do this, and we can just keep on eking through life doing this every single day, and we're just gonna survive. Autopilot is just fine by us. So as you start to thaw out of the state of freeze, and we'll talk about ways to do this in just a minute, but when you start your thawing out process, you are going to feel worse. It is not going to feel good because you have frozen yourself in a hyperactivated state. So all of that anxiety and nervousness, worry, maybe anger, rage, or frustration that you were initially feeling before your body locked you into the state of functional freeze is going to resurface. It's like something triggered you and you're all jacked up and you're in this hyperactivated fight or flight state, and then you just got frozen in time. So when you start to melt out of this frozen state, you are not going to go back to your safe, resilient, and regulated state. You are going to emerge from immobilization to wherever you were frozen in time. Whatever energy and emotions were driving you into this mixed state will still be there, and you will need to discharge them. And this makes the state of functional freeze a little trickier to deal with. If you are purely in a dysregulated, hyperactivated state, there are tools you can use to calm yourself down and to regulate yourself. When you are in a dysregulated, hypoactivated state, there are tools you can use to increase your level of energy and get yourself back into that zone of safety. But with functional freeze, we have to deal with both, and they're kind of coming at you at the same time. So you're coming out of this very numb, dissociated state in which you're out of touch with your feelings and your body and your purpose in life and your job. And instead of feeling better and like you're on your way to recovery, you start to feel worse because you're now going to experience a whole range of different symptoms. You can imagine the pendulum of a clock, and you're coming out of the state of numbness and feeling robotic and on autopilot, and maybe there's a little bit of hopelessness, and then bam, you're swinging over to the other side, and now you're experiencing impatience and annoyance and frustration, and maybe you have major anxiety or overwhelm, or suddenly you find yourself overthinking and worrying about a bunch of different things. You may still have anger or the state of unfairness or betrayal that you still need to deal with. And in addition to all of these negative emotions and these thoughts that are going to come up, you may even have physical symptoms like Suddenly you're getting migraines or headaches again. Or maybe now you have gastrointestinal issues or other forms of physical and emotional pain that surface. And if you don't know about this and you're not expecting this, then you can be tricked back into that functional freeze, because it's going to feel much safer and more familiar than whatever the hell is happening now. So it's really important for you to be prepared for this and to know that nothing has gone wrong. When you start to feel these negative types of emotions, it is a sign that you are starting to regain connection and to be more in touch with yourself and your emotions and your body. You are going to move away from numbness to irritation and annoyance and anger and frustration. You are going to move away from numbness into anxiety and overwhelm and nervousness and worry. And that is okay. This is just how the journey is going to go. On the road to recovery, you do not get to skip right over all of this work and back into your regulated state. That would be amazing, but that is not how it happens. You have to work your way back through all the layers. And this is why it can be such a slow process, because you have to handle it one tiny step at a time. This is also why it is helpful working with a coach who can help you introduce the feeling of safety back into your life, so that as you thaw out and you begin to tackle all of these difficult emotions that come up for you, and you start to work on your own negative self-talk and criticism, you are able to do so in ways that feel grounded and secure, instead of just scaring yourself back into a state of functional freeze. It's kind of like you're slowly titrating yourself back to normal. You're slowly on your journey back home. And on this journey, you're going to meet yourself where you are. And for many high-functioning professionals, ambitious women, people in veterinary medicine and other forms of healthcare, we are going to experience quite a big dose of cynicism. Many of us tend to have very vocal, very loud inner critics. That voice inside our heads which is always pointing out something is wrong, or how we're not good enough, or we didn't try hard enough, or maybe we're not cut out for this. That voice is going to come back strong. And you want to be able to let that voice in and to hear what it has to say without it being triggering to you. You want to be anchored in safety so that you can think about what's actually going on and you can learn to change the narrative. That little voice in your head is not speaking the truth. They are not facts. But one of the reasons that you ended up in functional freeze in the first place is because you didn't want to hear what that little voice had to say, and because you didn't have the tools to deal with it, you instead decided to shut it out and to freeze. So my friend, if you find yourself in this step of the journey, please, please know that nothing has gone wrong. This is just what you can expect along the way. And you can learn tools to help you feel safe and to heal from your triggers and your traumas. And you will get through this. However, if you don't understand this and you're not prepared for it, then when that inner critic voice comes back online, you will be pushed back into a state of functional freeze, even though logically you know that it's not the best place for you or where you want to be. It just feels more familiar. And in some sense, it feels easier to just exist and to go through the motions than it does to face all of those negative things head on. So in your journey to thawing out, you can think about it like you're on vacation and you're getting into a lovely swimming pool, or maybe you're on the beach and you're going to take a dip in the ocean. First, you're going to start by just dipping your toe in and checking the temperature. Then, if that's comfortable, you're going to step in a little further, maybe up to your knees or wade up to your navel. And if at any point it's too cold or the water is too murky or you're not feeling quite right, you're just going to go back to the shore, and you know that you'll try the water again tomorrow. Tomorrow might be a better day. And tomorrow you may get a little bit further. And eventually the water's going to be warm enough and you're going to be feeling safe and everything is lovely and you're going to swim. But you don't have to force it, and it doesn't have to happen all in the same day. You can also think about it like an ice cube melting. you know that this is a relatively slow process. You don't just take the ice cube out of the freezer and place it on your counter and then it spontaneously bursts into liquid. First, the ice cube may sit there, apparently unaltered, for quite some time. Eventually, you're going to see some slow melt on the surface, and if you keep watching it, then very gradually it will continue to melt, and eventually it will leave a little puddle of water. And after that, it's not magically going to disappear. It's going to sit there and slowly evaporate. This is the approach you must take to getting out of functional freeze. Another analogy you may find helpful is, say you get a really bad stomach bug and things are coming out both ends, right? I'm sure many of you can identify with the feeling of not knowing which end the liquid is going to come out and you're desperately trying to get to a bathroom on time. As you recover from this illness, you are not going to go out and grab fast food or pizza or go to a decadent restaurant and just hope that everything is going to be okay. Because if you decide to go out for a fancy meal, you know that you may end up running to the bathroom again, and this time it's going to be in a very public place. Instead, you're going to slowly start reintroducing food, and maybe you'll have a little bit of plain rice or a piece of bread. Perhaps you'll add in some chicken or a little soup or a piece of banana or whatever it is for you that is palatable and easily digestible and light on your stomach. And once you have convinced yourself that you can tolerate this, you've now increased your capacity for newer foods. And you can now begin to expand, and before you know it, you're eventually back to eating your regular diet. This is exactly the same way that we want to thaw out and reintroduce safety. It's just little pieces, one at a time. And we want to do this in a very mindful manner and acknowledge that while we're doing this, there are going to be feelings of discomfort that are going to arise. It's about acknowledging that those negative emotions are okay. And it's okay if you pull back for a little bit, but you're still going to be safe enough to try again. You're just going to allow yourself a little bit of these feelings and allow yourself to experience them and to feel them without being triggered. And then you're just going to take a teeny step back and then a teeny step forward. And you're going to do this slowly so that your nervous system and your survival brain do not get overwhelmed and hijack you and place you back into functional freeze. The other thing to take into consideration is that this is not going to be a straightforward linear process. It took a long time for you to get into the state of functional freeze, and there were a lot of ups and downs and twists and turns along the way. And now you're traveling that road in reverse. Okay, so now that we've set some expectations, we're going to talk about how to do this. The first thing in starting to introduce safety into your life is you need to know how to do this and what your safety cues are. And if you don't know, or if you're unsure what I'm talking about, these are the types of things that I teach to my clients. It's about learning how to orient yourself in your environment and also learning how to orient to your psychological and physiological cues. Psychological meaning your thoughts and your emotions, and physiological is your breathing and what those sensations feel like in your body. And you want to learn to create a safe space in your mind, whether that be through a memory or an imagined situation, or for some people they even find it physically within their body. And yes, I know for some of you, this all sounds kind of woo. I totally had that same reaction when I was first learning about this. And that's why I think it's so important to work with somebody who can guide you through this and explain it to you in a way that really resonates with you and helps you connect with the material. The thing is, I can spend forever to you explaining how to do this on a podcast, but if your survival brain keeps telling you that it's woo and it's not trustworthy, you're never going to take the action. And that's why working with someone can be helpful. And that brings me to the next thing that you can do, which is to work on a mindset shift. You're learning to manage your mind. You're learning thought work. And something that is helpful here is actively searching out those little glimmers of joy in your life. Take the time to think about and write down what you are grateful for. This is about being mindful and expressing gratitude and bringing that positive outlook into your life, because your brain has kind of forgotten that this part of your life actually does exist. So instead, It's sending you a bunch of signals telling you that there's no good or no positivity and everything is bad. So in order to combat this, you really want to practice and focus on the things that help you feel good and safe. It's like when you're at a networking event and you don't really know anybody there and you're feeling kind of shy, a little awkward, nervous, and you look across the room and you see a friend and they smile at you and you have this instant little moment of connection. That's what you're searching for, these little glimmers that build up hope and safety and bring you back to who you truly are. Once you have laid some solid foundation here, you want to start introducing movement. And not just any movement. This is going to be specifically to help you get back in touch with your body. When you are in a state of functional freeze, you're often just going through the motions. But you're not really doing anything enjoyable, and you're not doing anything intentional for yourself. Many people find connection through trying something like yoga, or going on walks with their pets, or with friends, or with their partner. And if you have a little bit more energy than that, you can even do something like taking dance lessons, or going to some kind of class, or taking yourself out for a bike ride. And let me be very clear here. This does not have to be exercise. You are not doing this movement to break a sweat or to lose weight or get fitter or somehow convince yourself that you deserve to eat. That is a whole nother episode on its own. When I talk about movement, especially when you've been in this really low energy state for a long time, what you're trying to do is reintroduce gentle movements and get back in touch with your muscles and your joints and your limbs and moving your body around. You're not trying to change anything about yourself physically. You're just allowing yourself to be in the moment and with the movement. For people who feel really frozen, really stuck, even just playing around with your posture while sitting in a chair can be a good start. Play around with what feels good to you and make it light and fun. It's like you're trying to bring this element of play back into your life. Play is a mixed state too, a mixed state of hyperactivation and safety. And we know that as we're coming out of this freeze state, we're going to go back into that hyperactivated state on our road back to safety. So play is a great way to get us through that. So maybe you just want to rock back and forth or do some swaying, or some of you may have seen those videos on social media where people are kind of shaking out their limbs and jumping around. And that's great. You can try whatever feels good for you. You're really just trying to move your body with no specific purpose. And if you're doing this, it can also be really helpful to put on some music that you enjoy, because music helps bring us into that state of play. And as you get more comfortable with moving around and being active, you can start to add in things like yoga or doing some kind of dancing or whatever feels good. Just know that as you start to do this, you will start to bring up a lot of negative emotion, and the movement and the play and the connection between your brain and body is what will help you be more tolerant of them. Now, a tip for people who are very high functioning, meaning you're going through the motions, but you're also still running 5 miles a day, or maybe you play on a recreational soccer team or something like that, your key is going to be slowing down. You're going to introduce slower movements so that you can get back in touch with your body and not just keep going through the same movement pattern that you've been doing over and over again. And in some ways, this can be even more challenging because you have to learn to let go of that need for go, go, go all of the time. Other forms of movement that you may find helpful include things like deep belly breathing, doing active meditation, or practicing the physiological sigh, which is something that I talked about in the 5 Fundamentals episode. Practice mindfulness when you are doing the things in your daily life, like cooking dinner or folding laundry, or even if you're writing records at work. Notice just the tiny movements of what you are doing and focus on being in the present moment. Orient and ground yourself to the things and the people around you. And when you're thinking of people, who makes you feel good? Who do you want to chat with? Who do you like connecting with? And it also helps to be mindful of your gratitude for that relationship with that person. These are the types of small, meaningful things that are going to help you thaw out. And then you're going to be met with all of that pent-up energy. So how are we going to discharge all of that and those negative emotions and the inner critic and everything that was frozen in time? How are we going to deal with any painful symptoms that arise, like migraines or unexplained pain or gastrointestinal issues? And if you've been listening to me for long enough, you know that the first step is always going to be awareness. Creating awareness and remembering and accepting that this is actually a sign that you are on the right path. Remember, a healthy nervous system is flexible, and it's meant to go up and down, and it is resilient, and it can handle the negative things that come, as well as embrace all of the positives. It's really about that 50-50, the duality of life. And this is really where coaching or even working with a therapist is very useful. You may have never worked through these types of emotions before, and the things that you're feeling and experiencing are always coming from your brain. They are coming from the thoughts that you think, and those thoughts are coming from all of your prior experiences, which are memories of your nervous system. So remember to normalize your experience, validate your emotions, give yourself permission to feel. Of course you feel this way. Look at everything you've been through. And now it's time for you to learn the tools that will help you move through these very real and unsettling feelings. I covered some of this work and how to do this in the episodes on affect labeling and also on the ruler technique, so those are very helpful to revisit. I've also talked about anxiety and worry before in some of the earlier episodes, and if you're looking for more structure on how to build a more resilient life, then I encourage you to revisit the episodes on stress management and the 5 fundamentals and learning about your nervous system landscapes. And if this seems like a lot of information and it's overwhelming and you're not quite sure where to start or what to do or you would like some help, then please reach out to me. This is exactly what I help people do. It is an honor for me to help coach you through all of this work. And if you want to schedule an introductory session with me, you'll find the link in the show notes, and there are absolutely no strings attached, no obligations. It's just a conversation for me to see if and how I can help you and to provide you with some support or maybe even teach you some tools to use. And if you're interested in exploring the state of functional freeze for yourself and you're curious whether this is something that you have in your life and the reason that you feel burned out, then don't forget to email me at vetcoach@daringdvm.com and I will send you the free worksheet so that you can explore in your own time what the state of functional freeze looks like to you. Once again, no obligations, no strings attached. It is just a resource that I have and I'm making it available and I am happy to share it with you. Okay, my friends, I really hope that you found today's episode insightful and helpful, and I really hope that it's gotten you curious about what you describe as the feeling of burnout in your own life, and if you're actually identifying more with the state of functional freeze, I hope it's given you some tools to start thinking about and bringing into your life. I say this all the time and I truly mean it. I love who you are, and even more than that, I love who you are becoming. Remember, you are already so capable and brilliant and strong, and you have adapted and you have survived so well. And it is okay for you to come out of that survival state and thrive. You absolutely deserve to live a life of fulfillment, intention, and joy. So let's get to work and let's dare to dream.